Hello and welcome to the Give Me the Remote podcast. It's episode 50 and it is Sunday the 22nd of September. I'm Sheridan and I'm joined in the pod by John.
Hello, it is indeed John. What year is it, Sheridan?
It's 2019.
Excellent. Okay, that's all the information everyone needs to be going on with. And what are we talking about first?
Let's start off with talking about Carnival Row.
The chaos of wars brought a new wave of refugees to these shores.
Our streets are safe, no more.
This is our city!
They will never accept us.
Are you going to start with the big one?
Might as well.
Okay, so this has been advertised the arse out of. I don't think I can open Twitter without seeing a Carnival Row ad. They must be spending
really?
a lot of money on hitting my demographic.
Amazon Prime, it's
Yep.
on. They've just renewed it for season 2, so that might be why.
It was never not going to be renewed, as far as I can tell. In a way, it's one of its flaws is that the story is incomplete. But
it's a very big story.
It's a big story. It's Orlando Bloom desperately channeling Jon Snow.
There's also, what's her name? Cara Delevingne, the ASOS model.
Right, is that where she's from?
She started her career as an ASOS model and then became like a uber hit it girl.
I thought she was pretty good in this.
Yeah, I mean, she looks like a fairy, so that helped.
Well, yes. So this is possibly my all-time favourite genre, which I've never once seen brought to screen before.
Wow.
This is steampunk urban fantasy.
How did you know it's your favourite genre? I thought your favourite genre would be battleships.
Steampunk has battleships.
Battleship tank wars.
Steampunk has tanks and battleships and wars. There's lots of war in this.
So we're in a world where there's fae and
Fae are fairies.
yeah, and normals.
Now, it's not quite defined to any degree I got, but I think fae broadly refers to everyone who isn't human. And
I agree.
There's lots of things that
A
aren't
few different
human in
types
this.
of races.
Yeah, so
I mean, presumably they are trying to make some sort of commentary on race, which...
they make a lot of commentary on race.
Well, sorry, when I said that rather sarcastically, because it is very cliched.
Yeah, but I mean, commentary on race is pretty much 50% of the story.
Yeah.
But obviously not good enough for you.
Oh, I just felt it wasn't done in a very sophisticated way.
Okay.
Well, they're
going.
not all that different.
I think that's part of the sophistication of it. Because fundamental, and one of the things they're nice to is that there are black and white people and they're all treated very equally. But my God, if you got horns growing out of your head and wings on your back, then ooh. And they do make commentary on this isn't the way it always is or the way it has to be. I quite liked. I mean, someone said this is love. There is a Lovecraftian element to it, and this is payback for Lovecraft's racism. Which I thought if you're going to do Lovecraftian stuff in 2019, you do have to address racism.
Yeah, I never really got into Lovecraft, I have to say.
So you've got The Burg, which is the city, and Carnival Row. The name of the show, I don't know what I would have called it, but I wouldn't have called it Carnival Row because...
Yeah, it's a bit... well, that's where they all live. That's like
well, they don't all live there. Carnival Row is a very small setting in
Carnival
one city.
Row's the, like, what's the modern equivalent in London? Like, where all the rich people live.
No, Carnival Row is where all the immigrants live.
Oh.
And they have the brothels.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
No, I wasn't paying attention to that bit. Sorry.
Yeah, but sure, take a dump on their treatment of racism.
My fail. I think actually the thing that I just didn't find the characters to be that engaging, so I just tuned out a little bit every now and again. Hence the quality of this review.
Right.
What did you think?
Look, there's a big story going on here, and I mean, they start the story, the opening sequence is literally on another continent, which we periodically revisit, where a lot of big, bad and exciting things are happening, and there's werewolves running around, and there's fairies being trapped in tree netting, and there's giant dire wolves tearing people's throats apart, and there's sailing ships off the coast, and then we keep going back to a almost a Victorian period drama with snobbishness about who has horns growing out of their head.
Yeah.
And, like, there's things in the Burg, which is the city, which is all steampunky. Like, they've got this steam-powered monorail. No, we never see anyone actually on it. We just see the steam-powered monorail tracks or occasionally the train going past.
It looks really good, I have to say, though. I'm not really a fan of that whole steampunk aesthetic, but I think this has done it as well as anything I've ever seen before.
They're quite restrained in it, which I think helps. Like, not everyone has clockwork coming out of their heads.
Yeah, well, it's like it's actually done in a practical way. Like, there's purpose to the kind of the machinery and that steampunk kind of decoration. It's not just purely decorative.
Yeah. Now, the intro credits are like a cross between Game of Thrones and Westworld.
Yeah, that's true, actually.
And it definitely has aspirations to that. I didn't think the dialogue was up to the level of Game of Thrones.
Yeah, definitely not.
But I did think one thing they did astonishingly well was love stories.
Yeah, although I didn't love the story. I didn't love the story. Between Orlando Bloom and Cara Delevingne. Why did they break up in the first place?
Sorry? Well, she thought he was dead.
But why did he, leave her?
I think they were being broken up by the fairies who didn't want them to stay together.
Just didn't seem very plausible.
Well, it was a war, and, he got dragged off, wounded by his people, and she got dragged away by her people, and then he was sent back somewhere else, and that's what happens in war, particularly before the internet, where it was relatively easy to ping someone an email and they'd get it eventually.
I just think they would find each other earlier than they did.
But if you think someone's dead, you don't find them. You don't go looking for them.
Yeah, okay, I guess so. Why didn't he find her then?
I imagine he thought she was dead too.
So it wasn't very explained very well.
Okay. Sure. I thought the explanation of that was a little vague, and I think they might come back to it in a future season, but I did think the early depiction of the love story between them was very good, and the depiction of the falling society lady and the park.
Oh, that was great. That was really good. That was my favourite part of the whole show.
Yeah, but so that's two very well told love stories in one show, which is two more than you get in most.
Well, except I only liked one of them.
I'm still saying the other one was good just because you don't like it.
Yeah.
So it did feel though like this was a small story in part of a larger world, and I think they're going to tell more of it. The name Carnival Row and people wearing bowler hats, you just assume it's something about carny folk.
I agree. When I started watching it was quite different to what I thought it was going to be without having seen any previews, just the title and a little bit of, the promo poster.
Yeah. So anything else you want to say on this one?
No, I'm looking forward to season 2.
Oh,
I think,
so it must have really warmed up to you because you were hating it for a while.
I'll give it a crack.
Yeah.
If I'm not good by episode 3, I'm done. Mm-hmm. So,
How many stars?
3.
Yeah, right. That's more than I thought you'd give it. I'm on 3.5. There's some good things. It just didn't quite get over the line for me. Hopefully, having been signed up for season 2, they can bump up the writing room.
Yeah.
And just a little more snappiness in the dialogue, I think, would have gone a long way. And but I mean, there's the story's quite good in terms of the twists take their time to unfurl. You don't get what's going on at the start.
No, you don't.
Which is, to an extent, its weakness in that you're totally freaking
confused. You're very confused.
But yeah, 3.5 from me. But I will definitely be checking out season 2. So if you want to invest in a big story because you're post Game of Thrones, then I think you could do worse.
That's true.
I think it deserves better than you can do worse. I think it's got potential. It's a good season 1, and let's not forget Game of Thrones wasn't brilliant in season 1 either.
Yeah.
So what's next?
Godzilla, King of the Monsters.
Our world is changing. The mass extinction we feared has already begun,
And this is the second Godzilla movie in this sequence.
Yes, it's got what's her name? Millie Bobby Brown from Stranger Things leading.
You know what? The first time I saw her, I was like, oh my god, it's, what's her name, 11?
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh. And then she just became that kid. So I guess good for her that her acting meant she just wasn't the same character.
Yes.
Just
a bit more of a teenager in this one, yeah.
But this is a hot mess, isn't it?
I didn't even know what the plot is, other than that there's a whole bunch of monsters.
People have access to a lot of bases.
And they're all coming to life all over the world.
So it's a bit like Pacific Rim.
And they're just like pretty much going hectic.
Charles Dance plays a character who felt like we were like, oh, shouldn't he be the hero? And maybe he is, but there's it has no respect for time and distance. They just teleport from one end of the world to the other.
Oh, it's crazy.
They're literally like, oh, there's holes in the undersurface of the ocean, and we'll just And there's not enough people getting eaten by monsters.
There is definitely not enough people getting eaten by monsters. It cost $200 million to make.
Wow.
Which is just phenomenal.
That's a lot for a discontiguous mess, isn't it?
It grossed $385 million though, so...
Oh, wow. I wonder how much of that was the overseas market.
I suspect... Yeah, well, I don't know. In China, it grossed 54 million, I'm just reading here, on its first weekend. Okay. I think a lot of money was made in China.
Oh, yeah, but then the profit margin on those tickets isn't great. Anyway, it does have a lot of monsters, but you only tend to see them very briefly.
This is what was very frustrating, because when you do see the monsters and when they're being cool, it's actually like a really cool, fun movie. But they're just tiny slivers.
And there's a lot of confusing running around and people shouting at each other and walking through new bases. There's just bases everywhere.
There are, yeah.
But in the good guys and the bad guys both have
a lot of underground bases.
Yeah, and don't forget the giant bomber that's also a base in the sky.
Yeah.
Loosely based off a B-2 bomber, but 10 times the size and with acting as a mothership. It just reeked of lazy writing, and it's a shame because the people who did the visual effects did a good job.
I think they were actually trying to make it cheesy, and I mean they definitely were trying to make it over the top, but it just didn't seem to organically work, so it just seemed a bit try hard. So that kind of B-grade cheese just seemed lame, not
Look, I think
funny.
The Meg did this way better than this movie did. The Meg had failings and faults and was dumb as a box of hammers, but at least the action had some continuity to it, and you knew where people were going and why and what they were trying to do.
Yeah, I think it just sort of took itself a bit seriously or something, and just that's where it failed.
Oh, but also there's a lot of transperambulation of the pseudo-cosmic antimatter in this, you know.
Wow, that was a sentence and a half. I have no idea what that meant.
It's meant to be that no one knows. But, you know, there's just, with these sounds I can control the monsters. With you know.
Yeah.
Look, you want big monsters, you want them to be evil, you want Godzilla to come fight them, you want Godzilla to lose in the first act, you want everyone to be worried and concerned, then Godzilla comes back in the third act, beats the monsters, and everyone goes home. Godzilla
did not feature very often in this film, given it was called Godzilla King of the Monsters.
I think he did beat the other monsters in the end.
Well, of course, I mean, that's what he's there for. Otherwise, that would be a very misleading title, wouldn't it?
Oh.
But he doesn't appear for a while.
Kings can get deposed.
You have Mothra running around for a while. And a couple of others that I can't remember their names. So... Yes,
indeed.
I mean, it was basically there was quite a few actors, but... Millie Bobby Brown is the mean, she's the main person in the film.
Her mum, Charles Dance. I don't know. It's all a blur.
Actually,
It's a very disappointing blur. Having said that, the last Godzilla movie was not super either, so I don't know really quite what we were expecting. But
King Ghidorah was kind of cool for a while.
King Ghidorah?
The three-headed monster one.
Oh, the Hydra thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was okay. I know, you just need more cities getting stomped in a Godzilla film.
I agree, yeah.
And then, you do a little bit of introduction, like you meet the little girl playing with a dolly, and then she gets stepped on or something,
It was quite a multiracial cast.
Oh, of course it was. It's, they were picking a key actor from every demographic they hope to sell tickets in. That's
well, there was,
that's Hollywood blockbusters in 2019.
Yeah, because there was a time when that didn't happen. Bradley Whitford is looking real old these days.
You know what? When you look back at Josh in the West Wing days, his hair was receding even then.
Yeah, but now it's just really grey. It's like white. He's old.
Yes.
He's unbangable.
Right. Would you have banged him back in the West Wing days?
Yeah, everyone would have.
Really? I thought they all wanted Sam.
No, only hot girls want him. Well, only hot...
Whoa!
Well...
What, you mean I'm not with a hot girl? What's going on? Why did
he was more of the thinking man's crumpet.
I thought it was Richard Schiff. Anyway, no, Richard Schiff was his name.
Who was Richard Schiff?
Toby.
Oh, yeah. That's true. There was more than one crumpet.
There was a lot of crumpet.
All the guys could only go for CJ.
Oh, no, there was the blonde one.
Oh, the
assistant.
little tiny squeaky one.
She wasn't as tiny or squeaky.
Wasn't there we're really getting off topic.
Because there's just not that much to say about Godzilla. How many stars?
1.
1 star. Wow. I think I'd give it 2. But I basically really wouldn't recommend it, and life is too short and there's other things to see.
Yeah.
Just chuck on a random comedy special from some racist
Godzilla
arsehole
1.
Or Godzilla 1, yeah. Okay then. Okay, Sheridan, what's next?
Inside Bill's brain.
Bill Gates, what's your favorite animal?
Dog.
What's your favorite food?
Hamburger.
What do you eat for breakfast?
Nothing.
What is your worst fear?
I don't want my brain to stop working.
Okay.
It's a Netflix documentary series. I think it's Netflix. It's on Netflix anyway. Yes, it is Netflix. About Bill Gates. Specifically, his brain. You go first, because I've got views.
So, I've read books like Accidental Empires by Robert X. Cringley, and as a book explaining how Silicon Valley developed up until the 90s, I'd highly recommend it, but just accept that it's only going to take you up to the 90s, and you're going to need to read more stuff to come up to the current day. And that's a bit of a warts and all about Bill Gates and Steve Jobs and some of the other characters at that time, and this one doesn't have the warts.
It is a very glossy portrayal of Bill Gates.
Yeah, which, to be fair, Microsoft is a greatly reformed company from what it was when it was threatening to consume the world, and got itself in antitrust troubles because it was consuming the world so rapidly.
But he hasn't been the major power influence in it for quite a while.
No, but he has still been the major say in it, and it has developed into a company that now is a lot better in many ways than what it was.
Yeah, but I think the problem is they do deal with the antitrust violation, but they
mostly
gloss over it.
Mostly with Bill's talking about how hard done by he was.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to hear his point of view on that. It's not like there's not a lot of public record we can seek out to know about that, and Bill's perspective is still interesting. It focuses a lot on what he's been trying to do philanthropically, which is great. Particularly his realisation that drinking water was more important than computers.
I do see what they're doing, and they're obviously doing quite amazing things. They've basically eradicated polio. Mm-hmm. I've not heard myself much criticism of the organisation. Of an organisation that size, one would assume there is they're not 100% perfect, but overall, I've not heard any startling allegations of misuse or, poor treatment of people.
There is a problem with the way the American philanthropic giving is set up. And it's not Bill Gates' fault. He didn't invent the system. The system's just there, whereby a supremely wealthy person dumps all their money into their philanthropic foundation so they don't have to pay tax on it. They still control how the money's spent, and they can still profit from interest earned because they only have to give out, I think, 4% per year. But anyway, it's much less, smaller amount than they can earn on interest on the money.
Yeah.
And so they retain control over the money without paying tax, and then they give back in some philanthropic thing that matters to them. And my question as a member of a society is, do I want to know that there's a Van Gogh painting in a mansion that I'm allowed to visit on Tuesday afternoons, or would I prefer that money have been spent on a hospital?
Yes, and I mean, even this organisation, and I'm not saying that it shouldn't be this way, but effectively Bill Gates is someone who made his money in America running an American corporation, and now most of the philanthropic work he's doing is actually is in Africa.
What, you're saying the American taxpayer's getting chipped on that?
Well, I'm not saying there's anything, I'm not saying I disagree with that, but I'm saying there would be an argument from the American taxpayer that they are getting chipped on it, yes.
Yeah, certainly that their foreign aid budget is something they'd prefer to have greater democratic oversight of.
Yeah.
Then you get the argument the American government just spend on nuclear weapons anyway, but that's a different argument.
Yeah, and I mean, having said that, he's tackled a problem that there seemed to be no appetite for any foreign government, so American, to tackle with their foreign aid budget, because I guess it's not very sexy to say, let's make people crap in the right place so they don't die.
Yeah, and then also, I mean, anyway, there's a lot it gets into in the engineering of what they're doing with trying to make toilets scalable to the third world.
I was kind of disturbed that apparently there's lots of people in the world that are drinking poo water. Like water made from their poo.
Everyone does.
Where does our water come from?
Okay, we're very lucky people in that our water falls from the sky and goes straight into the dam.
I was going to say, I don't think I'm drinking poo water.
But where do you think your poo goes?
Into the ocean.
No, it goes to Gundagai, where they drink it.
They don't, do they?
Yeah. Your poo goes out to the sewage treatment works and goes into the Murrumbidgee River and floats downstream.
Wow. But this is a bit more direct than that. Like, they actually extract the water from the feces.
Yeah, but most major cities in the world recirculate their water.
Anyway,
which is one of the reasons why people drink single-use bottled water, because they don't want to drink the tap water.
Well, apparently this tap water is very clean.
Well, yeah, so is the drinking water in London, but, people still don't want to drink it.
Mm. Anyway, so this was made by the same guy that made An Inconvenient Truth.
Very different style. It didn't feel like a giant PowerPoint presentation.
No. There was a lot of walking in the woods together talking, wasn't there? It was a bit self-indulgent, I felt.
And I mean, it was quite funny watching Bill's muffin top squeezing over his funny belt.
Oh God, that was a really bad sartorial choice, that white belt.
I think it gave the folksy look. I mean, but the idea of walking in the woods and having a chat with a cameraman and a sound guy and a lighting tech was, extremely awkward.
I mean, he is obviously an extremely intelligent person. They show this, segment where his assistant is packing his book bag, and every week he carries around in basically like a green bag, like a recyclable shopping bag, but like probably a fancy one that's made by Tommy Hilfiger or something. It looked pretty nice. It has like 37 books in it, and he reads 37 books a week. And he carries his book bag everywhere. I mean, that's kind of nuts, but all of this stuff, like, I found that interesting.
Why doesn't he just load him up on his phone? But yeah.
Well, he obviously likes. There was definitely something about that he likes the physical act
and
of reading.
And he's rich enough, he can hire someone to carry the bag full of books as well. So.
He's hiring someone to clean the bag out. That's what his assistant said. She was like, I clean it out every week. Anyway, which I found that kind of interesting and, amazing, and you're like, oh god, I wish I could read 37 books. But then you're like, well, it's also like kind of creating this sort of mythology around him as a man, like that he's somehow not really human. There's a lot of myth making going on in this documentary.
Oh, yeah.
And it didn't sit comfortably with me the whole time.
Mm. And the nuclear stuff at the end seemed to go nowhere in particular. You're like, what on earth where are they going?
Yeah, I have some it really kind of scared me. I think Bill wants us to all have nuclear power. But the government won't let him.
Yeah, which is good.
Yeah, but...
It just seems unnecessary when we can just have nice solar panels and batteries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But overall, I found this quite interesting. I mean, Bill Gates is someone who's not really he's obviously a very famous person, influential on history, but not part of what I would probably say in the zeitgeist right now.
Yeah.
You don't hear much from him.
To some extent, he's yesterday's man in the tech scene.
And he seems to have acknowledged that and moved on.
Yeah, well, he's saying, well, I've made more money than God, and now I've got to figure out what I'm going to do with it,
Yeah.
Which is, at least he is trying to do good things, although they're limited through his perspective as a very straight, very white.
Well, that's why I sort of found that nuclear
privilege
thing at the end a bit disturbing, because that actually shows where...
That's a classic callow nerd thing. It's like, oh, we'll just find an engineering solution.
But it also shows where someone who's got so much money, so much money that they're as powerful as a government, can really cause quite poor outcomes. I mean, what if his toilet escapade had have just been a complete balls up? Like, he could have really, really messed with, like, a lot of countries, like, not just people, like, actual populations.
That happens all the time. The frolics and the follies of the wealthy and powerful get inflicted on the rest of society on a near constant basis. I did really like in this, Warren Buffett gets interviewed more than you might expect.
He does, actually. That's
in a Bill
true.
Gates
I forgot about
documentary.
that.
And
they're quite good friends. They play bridge together. It's really cute.
Yeah.
Can you imagine going to your bridge club and being like, shit.
Well, it was funny because they showed the Omaha Bridge Club. And, I mean, Warren Buffett, to his credit, has always just sat in Omaha, making his millions, and invests huge amounts of money in the civic amenity of his town for the benefit of the rest of the townsfolk. Well, admittedly, again, though, it's things that Warren Buffett wants for the town, not that anyone else wants for the town. But they have got a very thriving art scene on the back of Warren Buffett's money. So, we could do with a bit of that around here, frankly. But... So the scene of the Bridge Club with its fading awnings, and you're like, surely Warren Buffett or Bill Gates could pay for new awnings for the Omaha Bridge Club. Although the seats did look very comfortable.
They did. They did.
But Warren Buffett said something that really struck me, which was talking about saying that the people you want as friends are people who push you to be a better person. And I thought, to some extent, I've sought out people in my friendship groups who make me a better person. So I was like, yes, Warren Buffett's affirmed my life choices. But I can easily see how for other people who make friends with people who call to their darker angels, that could be a big part of how they spiral into pretty terrible life choices.
Warren Buffett, philosopher, millionaire,
well,
billionaire.
They do call him the sage of Omaha.
They do. He's quite a cute little old man, actually.
Yeah, it's a shame that some of his decisions do horrible things to humanity, but yeah.
And then you see his cufflinks and you're like, you are loaded.
I've got some good cufflinks.
He's really loaded.
Well, I don't got billionaire cufflinks. What are you going to give it?
Look, as a piece of accuracy, wasn't impartial.
This is a rich man's blowjob.
It is, but I found it quite interesting.
It's an interesting rich man's blowjob.
Yep. So I'm going to give it 4 stars. And it's not too long. It's two episodes.
Wow, 4-star blowjob.
Yeah, I'm going to give it 4 stars.
Yeah, right. I'm probably only going to give it 3 just because I know a little bit more of the history and the glaring airbrushings bug me on a few things.
Maybe I'm being overly generous.
Yeah, but...
Because at the time I was sitting there going, this is bullshit.
It's an interesting look, albeit a carefully curated one, into a very wealthy and important person who is
They-
doing some interesting things and has some interesting things to say.
Yeah, and they did give quite a lot of access. There was quite a lot of access to their house. You did actually get a sense of what it would be like to live.
Although you'd note
As
you
Bill.
would still, with the access you had, you would never know where it was.
No, well, I mean, he doesn't want kidnappers.
I think the location of his house is reasonably public knowledge. There was something years ago that there are always 3 cameras trained on Bill Gates at every moment.
Wow. He looks old, actually. Oh, he looks like he's getting on.
He's getting on. Funny thing is, he's way younger than Warren Buffett, and Buffett in some ways looks sprightlier, but yeah.
Yeah, that's true, actually.
Yeah, oh well. In theory, eventually they'll all die.
Yeah.
Okay, folks, so we have reached the end of another podcast. We're in a very different setup tonight, which will hopefully be the permanent one. We'll see how the sound goes. I think I might have muffed a few settings, so I apologise for that. Thank you for struggling through. Do send us your emails to gmtrpodcast@gmail.com, particularly telling us about all the things we've done wrong. We like those. And otherwise, let us know on the many and varied formats available to you.
Thanks, folks.
Good night.